Hello and welcome. I hope you're safe and well. Today's exciting episode, I make a tweed jacket from a Linton tweed and I add some beads that look like keys.
It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket.
So I started this other tweed jacket that's pink and beigey brown and yellow. But then I realized I had enough time to do an entire jacket from start to finish. And I'm like, yes, I will do that. So I've got these two tweeds. They're both Linton tweeds. They're the same weave, but they look completely different because they're in different colorways. So actually they remind me of, there's this native bird in Australia called the fairy wren, and the boy is blue and the girl is brown. And they kind of remind me of that. Anyway, the blue one reminds me of a old blue t-shirt. And this one, it's camouflage. So it's khaki olive colours as well as bright pink. And I call it the flamingo tweed. I just love the juxtaposition of the camouflage colours as well as the look at me, hot pink. It's so fabulous. Although I can't decide how to beat it. I think I've got these keys that are red keys that I'm going to use on the blue one. And I also have some keys, they're metal and they're sort of a copper colour. So I might use them on the other one and they can be sort of twinish ones. And that's the French tweed that it just looks like a ray of sunshine. So I put it I put it there as well. These three are they're on my Make Nines, so I'm trying to decide what to do next month, like what my theme will be for next month. I could have a movie like You've Got Mail or some other rom-com, or I could have just try and make up as many of my Make Nines as possible because I've got a couple of tweeds on there, but there's also so I decided to make up this blue one because it's adorable. I just want to hug it. I love it. So this is me showing you the back of the tweed. So sometimes the tweed is the same on the front as the back, but this one, it's quite different on the back. So when I lay it down, it will look weird. So I'm just showing you the back. So, yep. So anyway, first we have to do the structural lay for the jacket. So a lot of people ask me what's the difference between stiff netting and tulle. Tulle is the floaty stuff that you use to make a bride veil, and stiff netting it's quite coarse. It's like thick plastic with holes in it. Someone was watching one of my old videos the other day and they're like, yeah, but what does Chanel use for their jackets? So this is me. I just cut out, because I'm using those big beads, I'm doing 2 structural layers. So I've cut out 2 of every pattern piece and I've pinned them together. So now I'll be working with them as one piece, and I've laid them out. So I've laid them out in order. So we've got the front of the jacket, side front, side back, centre back, other side back, side front and front. I've also got the front inside pieces, but I'll keep them separate for now. And I've also got the 2 bits of each sleeve as well. And they're to the side. So now I have to make a shell, which I'm going to drape the tweed over. So I'm going to pin the 2 front left together, the 3 back together, and the 2 front right together, and we will machine sew them. So here we go. So this is me trying to hold the camera and open up the bits to show you. Once they're sewn together, machine sewn together, you'll be able to see, but you can sort of tell I've pinned them together. Now I will just machine sew those, and here we are. So I've machine sewed them together. You can see the line. And then you just splay open the seam allowance and pin it back, and then you hand stitch it down. It is tempting to just turn all the seam allowance to one side and stitch that down, and that way you'd only have to do half as many lines of stitching, but the jacket will look better if you splay it open and do 2 lines of stitching them down. So here we go, and I'm just being a little bit lazy here because I'm about to stitch my shell to the tweed, so I've just left them pinned instead of hand stitching. But it's much easier if you hand stitch. So now it is time to put these aside and get out the tweed, and we will pin our shells to our tweed. It's just pinning one layer to the other, but technically it's called draping. And anyway, I started to tell you, I've got this other whole podcast episode about how Chanel makes jackets and how they evolved. So if you go into a Chanel store, so this is me pinning them down. The front and back, they sort of all pattern match right around the whole thing, because at the bottom, they all line up. And then you sort of pin them, and then I've got the second half. I'm just sitting in front of my workbench, and I've got the second half of the tweed in my lap here. It is a bit tricky working on such a thin table, but you can just work on the floor if you don't have a big table, because it is tricky on a smaller table. But anyway, so you pin down the center panel of your jacket, and then once that's done, you sort of mold out the two side ones. And with the fronts, you pin the center front one down first. That's the one that has to be flat. And then the side front is the one that adds depth. So pin the two center fronts first, then do the other one. And because tweed is a really loosely woven fabric, you can sort of mold it into shape. And without cutting it, it can be made to fit certain shapes. You just have to sort of pin, repin, pin, repin. And once you've got them right, cut them out. I'm a smaller bust size, so if you're anything larger than a C, this may not work for you. You may have to cut each piece of your jacket out on the actual panel. You might not be able to. It depends how big your bust is. But if you have a big bust, just do each piece per panel rather than doing this shell and drape method. And then if there's a disconnect between the pattern matching across the bust, you just add pockets over the top, and that sort of covers the pattern disconnect over the bust area. That's what they do with Chanel jackets. Anyway, so now I'm pinning them all together so I can machine sew all the pieces together and then do all the hand stitching at once. So lay down the back, fabric side up, and then I carefully put on one side, pin it at the side, pin it at the shoulder, and then once that's done, I put on the other side, again, pin it at very carefully, matching the notches at the side and the shoulder, and then I take it over and machine sew it. So with actual Chanel jackets, there's two types of Chanel jackets. There's ready to wear, which are the ones you can buy in the store, and then there's haute couture, which is the top end one. It literally means elevated sewing, and you have to go to Paris if you're one of those. There's only 2,000 people in the world who can afford to buy clothes this way. Basically, it's bespoke, but bespoke is the men's word and couture is the women's word. So after I finished the torso and that's ready to machine sew, the next thing I did was cut out the upper sleeves, because they're the ones that have to pattern match with the front of the jacket and the back of the jacket. Then I did the under sleeves, which is the next most important. And then once all those bits were done, then lastly I did the two inside front pieces for the front of the jacket, like the torso part of the jacket. So now that everything's cut out, these are the sleeves. So you just pin the upper sleeve to the under sleeve, obviously one side then the other. There's notches, and there's it's a little bit tricky around the elbow part, but everywhere else is pretty much straightforward. So I did those, and then once they were done, I pinned the two inside front pieces for the torso of the jacket to the jacket. In my opinion, it's really important to do the whole of the outer jacket first, then the sleeves, and then with your leftover fabric, do the inside front of the jackets, these two last bits here, because sometimes I don't have enough to do them in the correct direction and I have to do them 90 degrees. It doesn't matter because you never see the inside front of your jacket. But yeah, I want all the outside parts of the jacket to be perfect. And anyway, so then I machine sewed them, and now I have to once again splay open the seam allowance and pin it open, and then you have to hand stitch everything down. And once you hand stitch the seam allowance down, then I go around and hand stitch the tweed to the netting. But if you're doing this for the first time, it's much easier to hand stitch your tweed to your netting before you actually cut out each piece. But this way is quicker, and also I got to do the noisy sewing bit at a reasonable hour rather than at night. And look at this. Isn't it a beautiful tweed? It's tweeds from Linted Tweeds in the UK, and it's just so lovely. Although now that I'm looking at it, you can't see the pale blue as much. When it was just a tweed, it felt more like an old t-shirt, like it just had this absolute softness to it. But now that it's in a jacket form, it's, I mean, obviously it is more formal, but yeah. And this is me saying that I've done the sleeves. Now I have to do the same again with the rest of the jacket. And now it's the morning and I finished them. So this is me showing you all the hand stitching on pinning, like splaying back and stitching down the seam allowance, but also stitching the tweed to the backing fabric. This is me showing you that you can't actually see. So I used a really sort of mid-grey colour, which you would think would not match, but it's actually really good. It blends in beautifully with all the different colours, so you don't have to worry about only working in the light parts or only working on the white parts or the red parts. It's yeah, it's really good. So here are all the bits. We've got the torso of the jacket completely made, and we've got the sleeves made as well. Now I have to do the, and this is me showing you the leftover piece of the fabric. There's enough left to make a little handbag, which is awesome. But it really does, it's just so soft and absolutely beautiful. And it still has its softness. Like, that's the good thing about hand stitching the tweed to a backing fabric like netting, rather than the other way is quilting your jacket, and you machine sew it to silk, which in my opinion wrecks both of those fabrics. Like, tweed is incredibly expensive and so is silk. Why would you wreck both of them? But each their own. So yeah, I've got a whole podcast about how original Chanel jackets were just tweed. They weren't supported by anything, and the lining was silk. And then obviously the first customers were like, oh, my jacket is getting wrecked. And Gabrielle Chanel was the owner and creator. She wasn't really all that hands-on. So the people who worked in her workshops were like, well, we should add a structural layer like we told you in the first place. And she's like, that will cost a lot of time and money. No. So then she said, just sew the silk and the tweed together. And it must have absolutely horrified the seamstresses, but they did it. And yeah, it remained that way. It's the most cost-effective way, but it won't produce a jacket that will age well. And now I'm just showing you this footage again because I talked over it. So these are the beads that I'm going to use. I've got the keys, and then on the back I'm going to have a map in all different mix of red plastic beads, and there's some glass beads in there as well. So these are just from a kid's store. You can get them, and I just bought loads of them. So I'm going to do collar and cuffs. Oh, you've already seen what the partially finished jacket looks like. I haven't had time to do the neckline or the map on the back, but yeah, it's all different key. Well, they're all the same key. They actually say love on them, which is like key to your heart. I am so dumb. It took me so long to figure out what a love key was. Like, bless, I'm just special. But and this is me showing you that I haven't done the hem or the cuffs, so I'll have to do them next. You basically measure them and pin them as you go, and then pin it up. Then you hand stitch it, and then it's ready to sew the, because it's going to be easier to do this beading while the sleeves are separate and the torso is unencumbered by the sleeves slapping around. So yes, I did the sleeves first, and it's really tricky. Like, I think in the last episode was a sewing vlog where I said, oh my gosh, I'm just working on a million different jackets. And yeah, this is sort of the culmination of that. Like all the different techniques that I used in all the other ones have allowed me to sew these on, because you have to sort of hold it with one hand, stitch it with the other hand, but somehow get your needle back and forth and not move the key or the tweed at all. It is ridiculously technical, but it looks really simple. And now that I'm like sitting on the sofa and I can see the finished jacket, well, not quite finished yet. This is me showing you that I've hand stitched the hem and now I'm adding the keys. Oh, the back, the hem bit here was a little bit trickier because the left side faced left and the right side face left, or whatever. You know, half goes one way and the other half go the other way, and they had to meet in the middle. And I had to sort of find the midpoint and make sure all the keys fitted. And now look at it. It looks like they were always there, which is awesome. But do you know how much work and technique went into making this? Oh my goodness. It is cool though. Like when you see the classical ballerinas dancing around the stage and the guys throwing them up and catching them effortlessly. I just love it when something is completely effortless. And you're like, but do you know how much technique that took? So here, the front center panels, like the inside of the lining is the one without any keys on it, just in case you're wondering. And yeah, the keys make it so stiff that I could actually stand the sleeve up, like because of the way that the beading is done. So anyway, the next step was that I had to do the neckline once I'd done that beading. And I wasn't really sure. This neckline is closer to the neck than I usually do. Like the seam allowance is average, like this normal amount. Normally I make it much deeper. And I'm not sure about it. I mean, it looks nice, but I did it that big because I need the keys to fit between the neckline and the shoulder seam. And yeah, now that I look at it, I think I can make the redo it and make the neckline a little deeper, because yeah, I just prefer it if there's nothing near my neck. Yeah, so I might redo that. But anyway, at this point it was time to stick the sleeves on. So each of the pieces, pattern pieces, has notches on it, and I just put a pin where each notch is so I can clearly see them, and then match each sleeve in. And yeah, never sew sleeves on when you're in a hurry. I think I might unpick these as well and redo at least the top third over the shoulder. And I didn't even bother showing you. Well, clearly I machine sewed these sleeves in, and once they're sewn, the next step that you do is you clip under the sleeve, under the arm, just that bottom third, clip the curve so that it can sit back, and then you push all the seam allowance up into the sleeve, both sides. You pin it into place, then I hand stitch it twice. Once from the outside, right round, and because you're stitching into tweed, you can't see it, and then I turn the jacket inside and I stitch it down again from the inside, and then you roll the shoulder seam in between your fingers just to settle all the seams, and then that's how you finish it. So yeah, that was the front and this is the side, and it's such a beautiful tweed. I love it so much. And yeah, so these sleeves aren't perfect, and I haven't done the stitching, which is why they aren't sitting perfectly yet. And then the back is going to have there's going to be the collar of keys around the top. I'm not sure. So on the cuffs and the hem, I've done upside down key, right side up, upside down key, right side up. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the top, because obviously when you put stuff around the neckline, you're basically going around in a circle. So it would make sense to do the bottom of the key, like the big bit of the key at the bottom, and at the narrow bit where the neckline is, just do the teeth of the key. So, but I'm not sure. Doing that beading took so much time. I guess I could have just made the jacket and not done the beading, but was just so much easier to do those bits of beading without the arms attached, like the sleeves attached to the jacket. Anyway, I do still have loads of beads, so I can either do this way of the beading or around the neckline, or there will be enough to do a closer bit where like all the heads of the keys are at the base and all the teeth are at the top, which will, I'm guessing, take more. And then the back is just going to have a map on it, I think. At first I was like, oh no, I'll do a triangle, and then I was like, well, maybe I can do the press thing, but I don't think so. I think the point of the keys is the homeland, so I think I will do the map on the back there, just in, I suppose I could do the topographic one. I don't know. I think I'm trying to cram too much in. It's such a simple, beautiful, classic tweed. I think I'll just do the keys and all the different reds in the map on the back. But because the keys take up so much room, I think I'm going to have to make the map smaller than it was on the Yaffa jacket. Anyway, this is it. I mean, it's not completely finished, but gosh, this is a beautiful tweed. I just love it. And it's so soft, you would not believe. It's the most beautiful yarns and ribbons and all different things in there. It's a lovely tweed. Anyway, that is it for this episode, even though there's still loads more to do on the jackets, and I still haven't decided what I'm going to do next month. Probably You've Got Mail, because she's kind of going through an existential crisis. Like she has to, spoiler alert, she has to shut down her bookstore, and then she's got to decide what she's going to do with the rest of her life. And I just turned 50, so I'm like samesies. So I might do that. Also, I kind of want to make another floral jacket. And the last scene, they're in front of this community garden, which has the most beautiful flowers in there. And that's my excuse for making a fabric flower jacket. Anyway, that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've been inspired to make your own Chanel style jacket. They are fabulous. A lot of work, but fabulous. Happy sewing.